Well, look at that. I'm actually doing a video. It's been a while, guys. It really has. I really haven't had a lot to say ever since the videos I made, of course, with Sony doing the whole disc apocalypse and everything like that. You could, of course, check that video out if you happen to miss it. But I read this story on Facebook from trueachievements.com that I thought was very interesting. This is something that I haven't seen anybody else talk about. And so we're going to go ahead and get right into it here. Let me go ahead and bring this up. So, three Xbox games hard delisted from Microsoft Store over publisher dispute. Three Xbox games from developer Creepy Brothers have been hard delisted from the Microsoft Store over a dispute with the game's publisher. So they're talking about this particular, these three games here, Creepy Tail 1, 2, and Strike Force Kitty. They were hard delisted from the Xbox Store. Now, what does that mean? What do they mean by hard delisted? It's very different from the normal Xbox delistings that we see regularly. When the game is traditionally delisted, it means the game is no longer available for purchase on the Microsoft Store, but owners can still download and play whenever they like. As for a hard delisting, this is where the game is removed from the store and the owner's library, meaning it can no longer be downloaded without using a workaround. Guess what that means? Now, you might be wondering, what the hell are these games? Same. I've been thinking the same thing. I've never heard of these games. Creepy Tail 1, Creepy Tail 2, Strike Force Kitty. I've never heard of any of those games whatsoever. But they were on the Xbox Store, and presumably some people probably paid money for these games. Now, I did see that these games are actually available on Steam. And I guess the story is a little different here because it shows that the Creepy Brothers is the publisher and developer here on Steam. And that's not the case for the Xbox version of the games here, which are published by a company called No Gravity Games. And apparently another game was also hard delisted last month. This is another one I never heard of and heard nobody talk about, called Bullets and Brains. So again, hard delisted. That means that it's not just a situation where, oh, you can't buy the game anymore. They can't sell it for any kind of legal reasons or licensing reasons or anything like that, or just the publisher decide, hey, we just don't want to sell the game anymore, which I'm sure that even that happens on occasion. No, not only can you not buy the game, but if you had cleared that game from your Xbox hard drive, you can't re-download it. It's like it did not exist. It's a Mandela effect, essentially. That game does not exist in this dimension. It exists possibly in another dimension where perhaps No Gravity Games did not do some potentially shady things where they did not pay royalties to this developer for several years, which that sucks. That absolutely sucks. I totally get why you would delist the game for that, because if the publisher is not living up to their end of the bargain with the developers who actually made the game, they actually made the game that the publishers are making all of the money on, and therefore they should receive some kind of compensation. I would assume, unless, this studio, of course, is lying about the terms of the agreement, and maybe this publisher might have just gave them a flat fee to publish the game, and then that was it. And they keep all the profits beyond that. If there is no royalties at all, unless it's that kind of situation, yeah, you have to pull the game from the store. You have to do that, obviously, if they're violating the terms of the agreement. But why do we as consumers have to get fucked over by it? This is absolutely ridiculous. This is another reason why we cannot allow these companies to take away physical games. It's as simple as that. Now, if you want to play these games, they are freely available on Steam. Like I said, they've got Creepy Tail 1, 2, they even have 3, which I don't know what the situation is there, if that's available on Xbox or not. That was not mentioned in the article. Or maybe if it is available on Xbox, maybe they self-published it on there. Possibly. I'm going to look up the Strike Force Kitty. Okay, that is also available as well here on Steam. And it's all Creepy Brothers. They're just typical indie 2D style games. Games that haven't really set the world on fire, although a number of people have been playing them, obviously. That one's got 975 very positive reviews, 89%. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. Let's compare that to Creepy Tale. Yeah, let's see here. Because they made 3 of those. Obviously, that one's a little more successful sales-wise. That explains why that's the one that's getting the sequels, I suppose. Looks like a classic indie-style platformer based on the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. So that's pretty cool. Definitely show support to the developers if you are interested in this style of game, obviously. Screw this other publisher. Totally fine. Totally fine. I can understand. I can respect the reasoning why they would pull the game from sale. I cannot understand the reason why they would prevent a paying customer that bought the game from being able to play the game. Like if you have been affected by this at all, if you bought any of these games listed in the article, apparently there's another one, Signs of the Sojourner. This has a different article entitled entirely here. Now, this one doesn't mention the hard delisting. This was from Digerati that they had on this here. Let's see here. I'm not sure if that's another situation similar to this, as you can still purchase on Nintendo eShop and PlayStation. Steam also. So that's kind of interesting as well. But this is what we can look forward to in the future if we have access to only digital games. We can have these companies, for whatever reason, whether that reason's justified or not, whether it's legally justified or not, it doesn't really matter. There's no recourse for us as consumers for them to do this. They could easily do this. Say you bought like the latest NBA 2K. You buy NBA 2K26. I guess that's the newest one. I don't think 2K27 came out yet. Usually those come out around the fall, right? If I remember right. Say you buy that, and I don't know, maybe the NBA changed their licensing deal to where they can only legally sell that game for like 2 years or something like that. And then maybe they have some kind of contract dispute with the Players Association. I forget what it's called for the NBA. All of those major sports leagues have something like that. And maybe that Players Association is like, well, you can't be, obviously you can't sell the games, but because some of these players are protected by the unions and all this other good stuff, you also can't re-download the game. So maybe you're a casual sports fan that doesn't buy every single year of that sports game and get totally cocked to that ecosystem, because they're the only game in town. So, I mean, if you're a real big fan of basketball or football or whatever, you really don't have a choice. If you want to keep up with your team, and all that good stuff, you kind of have to buy the new game, right? That's how that works. But say you're a more casual person, that maybe buys a sports game once every few years or something like that, and then they just take away your sports title. I know this example is crazy, right? But they could do that with a digital copy. They could arrange this, and I mean, it's just getting utterly ridiculous. These companies, they're not even trying to be suave about it. They're not trying to push it under the rug. They're not trying to fly under the radar. They're just openly taking access away from us. All of these different video games. And they've actually done it for a long time. They really have. I don't know if you've seen my video about the Stop Killing Games that I did a long time ago. There was a little game called Massive Action Game. I was absolutely a huge fan of that game. you can't play that game anymore. The servers were shut down. It was an online only game. That is an example of those companies doing that. And this happened like over a decade ago. This happened a long time ago. This was long before this was ever a conversation online. This was not, I mean, people complained about it a little bit back then, of course. There were several other games that's happened to. There's literally been thousands of games that this has happened to over the past 2 decades or so. You know, it first was a thing that only affected MMO style games because obviously they were subscription based and online only, and everything is online only that had that affected. But now you can have single player games that don't require an internet connection at all, other than to download the game itself. So you really only need the internet access the one time to do any system updates potentially, and then download that game. And then once that's done, you're off to the races. If you don't ever want to connect your console ever again, you don't plan on buying any other games ever again, and say you have to clear some hard drive space and you want to reconnect the to the internet so you can re-download your game, and it doesn't exist anymore. This is the possible reality that we have. And I'm not talking about like, 20 years from now, they shut down the Xbox One servers or some shit like that, like way off in the future that people don't care about. That's something that like a lot of the younger gamers need to realize, like I'm wearing a Metroid shirt. This was an NES game, Metroid, classic, regular Nintendo. You could still play this game in a lot of ways, legal and otherwise. But the thing is, those are games that were made on physical media. This game will always exist as long as there is always internet access and computers and all that good stuff. There will always be access to this game in some way, whether it's on the original hardware, aftermarket hardware, emulation, you name it. There will always be a way to play an older title like Metroid. Whereas a lot of these indie games, that's not going to be the case. If they don't get a physical copy, if they don't get proper preservation, like through a DRM free system like itch.io or GOG, these games have the potential to permanently disappear. That is not an exaggeration. I am not trying to bait you guys with some rage bait in order to elicit a unreasonable reaction to this. That's just the reality of this. This is what can happen. Absolutely. It's happening right before your eyes. They're publishing news stories as of this week of this kind of thing happening. This is something that's happened many times, and you need to wake up. Like if you have bought these games, you need to contact Xbox support on social media and demand a refund for the games. If you can't play the games anymore and it's because of Microsoft's call to take that game from your library, then they need to refund you. The customers need to get their money back. Microsoft should sue they should sue the publisher to get their money back. For that violation, not take our money and not even give us the product, like just take the product from us willy-nilly. That is absolutely ridiculous. We need to fight back against this kind of shit. And it's really disappointing. People like talk about doing these like boycotts and all this stuff. Everybody's like, oh, I'm not gonna buy PlayStation shit and all this stuff. Have you guys seen the new trailer for the new Spider-Man movie? Do you think that, because, hey, here's a fair warning. Guess who is the publisher of the Spider-Man movies? It's a 4-letter word that starts with a S, okay, and ends with a Oni, okay? I don't have any illusions that despite all of the gamer outrage that there has been over the physical media, that Sony is going to be punished in any real serious way. There's going to be a small subset of people that are going to like swear off of buying PlayStation stuff, but it is a very small subset. Sony is making this bet because they have done thorough research into this, and they know that what little loss in sales that they're going to have from people that exclusively buy physical media or whatever, or nearly exclusively. There's probably some people that will buy all AAA games physically, but they might download an indie game here or there. Uh, that's going to go away. Those people are going to go away. They'll probably go to another platform, or they'll just stick with the old shit that they've already got or whatever. But they're going to be making more money. They kind of have to, because these companies have to meet the demands of shareholders. And apparently those demands include taking access of your own games that you spent the money for away from you. Because who knows? There's going to be a point eventually that you're going to determine that you have enough that you don't need to buy anything else. And then that means you're no longer a customer of that company. Therefore, there's really nothing to serve you anymore unless they take away from you, right? Unless they take away from you. And then it becomes a real problem. What are we going to do about this? These stupid petitions and everything like that. Okay, when I say stupid petitions, like, it's justified. It's great that people are trying to gather and organize together. But it's all meaningless when the only thing that matters to these companies is the money. And let's face it, they're still going to get the money. Unless the gaming community as a collective changes the way they behave, this is just going to be what we're going to get. So, yeah, more doomerism. That's kind of the reason why I haven't been wanting to do videos, because I didn't want to constantly do this stuff. But, well, this stuff constantly happens. So I guess it has to be talked about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out the most recent video that I did, which has actually probably been a while ago, unless obviously you're watching this after the fact, and it's probably is actually recent. So definitely check that out. And the other corner, the algorithm's going to send something fire to you. I think you'll enjoy it, most likely. And don't forget, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. But that's going to be the last line.